Ladies and gentlemen, today we have the honor of hosting a remarkable guest on Tennis Bytes. So he's not just a tennis enthusiast, he is rather the senior director of PBI operations and leads the tennis experience at the awe-inspiring Bio and Wellness Resort Stanglwirt, Austria. Philippe Azar brings with him a wealth of knowledge, passion, and unique perspective on how tennis intertwines with the beauty of this stunning location. So let's welcome Philippe to the show. Hi, Phil. It's so
Hello,
good to
hello.
have you.
Hi,
Thank you,
Phil.
thank you, thank you. Good morning, Bhushan. Good morning, Aadish. That was the best intro I have ever had about myself. I feel so important right now, so much more important than I really am. Thank you. Thanks for
We are
having me.
looking
It's a great
forward
honor.
to the great experience and the fun stories. I'm very, very curious today. But let's
Uh,
start with a little bit. So, how did you arrive in Austria? Or maybe before that, if you want to give a little bit of background, that's also great.
Sure, sure. Well, I spent most of my childhood in the United Kingdom, and that's where I actually also learned how to play tennis. And once I finished university, I wanted to carry on as a tennis coach, but I didn't want to do it in the United Kingdom because the weather being so bad,
Mhm.
I wanted to be somewhere warm and tropical. And so I heard about a company called PBI, Peterborough Wash International, which is based in the United States. And
Mhm.
I went on their website, and they had these most amazing destinations all over the world in beautiful, warm, tropical places like the Caribbean and Asia. And for me, sitting in the middle of the British winter, I was looking at that and I was salivating, and I said, this is for me. And so I contacted them, and one thing led to another. I went for interview. They accepted me, and I went through the month of training. Back then, you had to go through a month of training in Texas
Mhm.
before they sent you to somewhere warm and tropical. And so, whilst I was doing my month of training, I was getting all excited about where they might send me because they hadn't told me yet. I was dreaming of those Caribbean destinations, and they had place in the Pacific, etc., etc. And so when they told me that my first destination was going to be in the German Black Forest, I went, "Oh my God, no! This is going to be just as cold and horrible as what the UK." But long story short, I started out in the German Black Forest for 1.5 years. It was a beautiful hotel up in the middle of nowhere. And yes, there was snow, it was cold, but it was fine. And then they
Yeah.
contacted me one day and they said, Phil, we've got a new place that we're opening up in Mauritius. I said, Mauritius?
Oh,
I
wow.
don't even know where
Wow.
Mauritius is, but I said, yes, I will definitely go. But I didn't listen to them carefully enough. And even though I didn't know where it was, as soon as I put the phone down, I went and looked in the atlas where Mauritiana was. I forgot that it was called Mauritius. I
Oh.
looked at Mauritiana, and I
Huh.
looked it up, and Mauritania is this country on the west coast of Africa, one of the poorest countries in the world. I mean, it's really, and I thought, oh my God, where are they sending me now again? But then I ended up, I knew it was, I got corrected, and I ended up in Mauritius, and then from Mauritius, which was a beautiful little island in the Indian Ocean. I
Yeah.
spent 3 years there and then moved to Italy, to Mexico, to the Maldives, to Dubai, to Japan, Lebanon, Bahamas, amongst other places. And I've been here now in Austria for the last 7 years. This is the longest I've been in any one place with PBI.
Wow. But that's a great pitch for anybody who wants to join PBI, I think.
That's for sure. I mean, the original reason for a lot of the pros to join the company is exactly the same reason I joined it. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be in beautiful locations because we only deal with five-star resorts and high-end clubs all over the world. I want to be
Yeah.
in nice weather, and I want to do what I love, which is playing tennis and coaching tennis at the same time. So it ticked a lot of boxes, and over the years, it's ticked a lot of boxes for a lot of other tennis pros who've worked for the company.
A lot of PBI executives play tennis, is it? Because I met Rene and I thought whether I was not sure before meeting him whether he was an office person or a on ground person, but I think he was completely in the tennis attire when I met him, and I was so surprised.
You are so right. As much as Rene loves his role as the president of PBI, I've known Rene for many years. In fact, he was my first tennis director when we were working in the German Black Forest. And so I know that his first passion is being a tennis teacher and playing tennis. I mean, whenever we get together, it's we got to get out on the tennis court before we start talking business because we've got some scores to settle on the tennis court. But he's a really passionate tennis player, real passionate tennis coach, and a great person at the same time. And I think that's one of the common denominators between
Yeah.
many of the PBI professionals that we have. We always say that we hire the attitude first and we train the skills thereafter. And so in our interview process, we always look for the right personality first and foremost. Anything else thereafter, that's all teachable. If you've got the right attitude, anything is possible.
Wow. So I think I'm curious. I know that even Adish is curious. Maybe Adish, you want to start with some specific questions about this great destination?
Well, no, I just find it a little ironic that you set out for something, some place which is really warm, and now you have ended up 7 years in Austria. So, although I'm sure it must be a beautiful location, and you must be enjoying the view and all of that. But it's just a little ironic that you have to spend most of your time here.
It's funny you should say that, Adish, because and today, I mean, I don't know if you can see in the background, but we've got a snowstorm going on. But over the years, I've come full circle. I've done my time in the warm tropical environments. I've loved it. I
Yeah.
mean, living in the Bahamas, in Mauritius, in the Maldives, etc., etc. It was great. I loved it, and so I've spent enough time in warm environments. I've gotten it out of my system. I'm happy to be back in Europe and I'm enjoying the change of seasons and the snowstorms and the warm summers, whatever. It's all good.
So now that you have experienced everything, which one do you enjoy more?
That's always the tough question.
Do
That's
you miss
something.
the warm, do you miss the warm climate now, or now that it's out of your system, you're like, it's good to be back here?
Yeah, I'm fine now experiencing the change of seasons. I mean, being in Europe, you really experience all four seasons. I think my wife disagrees with me. She's from Mauritius, that beautiful tropical island in the Indian Ocean. She hates this time of year. She hates the snow, etc. She'd love to be in a warmer climate, but we're extremely happy to be in Austria. It's a wonderful country. It's a wonderful place. It's a wonderful hotel. Great place to be working at, great place for our kids to be growing up in. But I know where you're leading up to. You're going to ask me where was my favorite place to work, and it would be unfair to highlight any one place. They've all had great experiences. They've all provided great experiences for us. I think
Yeah.
culturally, the most interesting, the one that got us most out of our comfort zone was probably Japan. The Japanese
Okay.
are just the most wonderful people that we've met, and that was certainly one of the highlights of our trips around the world. It will always remain special. Our son was born there. The Bahamas will remain special. Our other son was born there. But that's not to say that any of the other destinations weren't special in their own way, also.
Wow. So a little bit about the bio resort. Uh, how does tennis start here?
This one is an interesting story because Bio Hotel Stanglwirt is situated in the Austrian Alps. We're about I would say an hour and a half from Munich, an hour from Innsbruck, an hour from Salzburg, which are the three major towns surrounding us. And it's one of the biggest hotels there is in Austria. It has a huge number of rooms. And our story, PBI's story, started here in 1978, which so I think that's
Oh
45
wow.
years now that we've been here, which makes it one of the longest partnerships between a tennis management company, which is what PBI is, and a hotel. I can't think of any other resort that has had a tennis management company work together with them for as many years. And so, how it started out is Peter Borwash, who was the founder of PBI, convinced the owner of the hotel here, his name is Balthasar Hauser, convinced the owner of the hotel that he not only needed outdoor courts, but he also needed indoor courts. And he was,
Okay.
yeah, but Peter was a fantastic personality who had extraordinary convincing qualities. And so they built two indoor facilities, two indoor court, or no, two indoor halls at the hotel. And that's when the story started. We created the camps back in the early 80s, and that was also at the time fairly cutting edge. There weren't a lot of camps in and so Europe at the time. And we got lucky because just around the middle 80s is when tennis exploded in Germany.
Hmm.
You had Boris Becker, you had Steffi Graf, you had then Michael Stich. I mean, it was a sport that every single German wanted to learn. And as there weren't many camp offerings at the time in Germany, everybody
Hmm.
heard about this hotel, which at the time wasn't that well known, but everybody heard about the camps that were going on at Stanglwirt. And so it started, there was a huge momentum of German players coming here, and the reputation of the hotel as a tennis destination started then. And you ask the owner of the hotel, Mr. Hauser, he often tells this story. He loves to tell the story of how he thanks the tennis program and the tennis for basically putting By Hotel Stanglwirt on the map. The
Yeah.
hotel
Yeah.
was for many, many, many years full, 90% filled up with just tennis players. We would have 60, 70, 80 campers during week in, week out, tennis players wanting to attend the tennis camps here. And that's what
Hmm.
basically got the hotel to become famous. And so these tennis players who used to come two, three, four times a year to take part in the camps told their friends about this beautiful hotel. Some of these friends were not tennis players, but they came anyway. And so slowly but surely, the hotel got diversification in the guests that came.
Yeah.
There weren't only
Absolutely.
just tennis players. Now there were people who came here for the beautiful weather, for the mountains, for the swimming pools, for the spa. And so over the years, the hotel has continued to grow. They've added new rooms, they've added new facilities, and now tennis is only just one of the many different activities that the hotel has to offer for the hotel guests. So we're not quite as 100% full with just tennis players. Now we get a lot of families, we get a lot of older people, etc., etc.
Do players get any kind of discount? Tennis players, especially,
If they
if
come in
anybody wants to come. Yeah.
Yeah, if they come in certain weeks of the year, they certainly get a discount. So during certain times of the year, we offer a program called Tennis for Life, which is our basically our hallmark program. This is the one that we've had from 1978 all the way to now, and it's basically a week-long camp that runs 5 days a week from Mondays through Fridays. And if you come in certain weeks of the year, you get a room discount. And you'll definitely want to take advantage of that room discount because the rooms are not cheap at Bio Hotel Stanglwirt. It's one of the most luxurious hotels in Europe. And so yeah, it's relatively expensive to stay at the hotel. But if you play tennis and if you come in those weeks, it's certainly more affordable.
But I actually have a sort of different
Right.
question.
Right.
Suppose you have
Yeah.
a couple of tennis enthusiasts who are seriously considering joining the camp or something like that. But then you as a coach, former coach, and now you're involved in the academy so much. So how do you differentiate between the people who are genuinely interested in tennis and the people who are just here for the views, maybe the pictures and the stay and all that?
I think they sort themselves naturally because we've got a diversified program. People kind of tend to slot themselves according to what they want to do. So the guests who are here because they want to take advantage of all the different facilities and services that the hotel offers might only do private lessons so that they have flexibility to go and do a lot of different other activities, and they might only take one private lesson a day or every second day so that they can go to the spa or they can go cycling or skiing or whatever else they'd like to do. And then the tennis aficionados, the real tennis desperados, the ones who want to play tennis as much as they can, they will tend to join into the camp because that's a little bit more of an intense experience. It's not only 2 hours of group instructions in the morning, but there's also activities in the afternoon. There's social mixers. We encourage people to mix together within their groups to go and organize matches for them in the afternoon. So I think people find their way according to how much tennis they want to play and book accordingly.
Okay. So I think coming to the most maybe an important question of this discussion, how does it feel to play there?
Oh, la la. Um, I will say it completely objectively, which means it's completely unobjective, but these are by far the outdoor courts are the most beautiful tennis courts there are anywhere in the world. The clay courts are first rate, first quality, but B, it's the background. And I'm sure we're going to be putting some photos up in the background where you can see the views from there. You see it's something really special. It's such a privilege for me to be able to call that my office because at the end of the day, that's where I spend the most of my time. And we often tell our students that we put the students so that they're looking towards the mountains. And to make them feel better whenever they miss the ball, we tell them it has nothing to do with their tennis. It has to do with the fact that they were probably looking up at the mountains. We had a gentleman earlier on this summer who came. He's traveling around the world, hired by a book publisher to photograph the 50 most beautiful tennis courts in the world. And so he made a
Oh.
detour to Stanglwirt to come and play on the tennis courts and take photographs because hopefully we'll make the short list of the most beautiful destination. And actually, that reminds me, there was an article a few years back in Business Insider, which is a famous
Hmm.
publication,
Yeah.
online publication, and they titled it "The 10 Most Beautiful Tennis Courts Where You Have to Play at Least Once Before You Die." Before you
Yeah.
die, they called it. And number one on that list was Stanglwirt. Number two was somewhere in Italy, and then Hawaii, etc. But yes,
Mhm.
if you ever have the opportunity, it's quite a special site. And to be noted, you don't have to be a hotel guest to come and play on these tennis courts.
Okay, okay. So yeah, that's what I think I wanted to understand as well. But yeah, that's a great insight.
Yeah,
And do
we're
people?
We're lucky in that
Sorry.
the tennis facility, we are open to non-hotel guests also. So anybody that wants to experience the outdoor courts or the indoor tennis facility, which is also actually a first class indoor courts, or our tennis program as a non-hotel guest, that can certainly be organized.
Well, one thing, like, don't take me wrong, but don't you think this kind of a view when you're offering behind a tennis court, so despite having such great tennis courts, it can be a distraction for a young player who really just wants to play some good tennis, who wants to get some good training.
I think, yeah, I think you're right. Like I said, we like to give people the excuse that they're not playing well because they're too busy looking up at the mountains. But ultimately, I think that wears off fairly quickly, and they become focused on the tennis again. And if their balls are still not going into the court, well, then it's our fault, the tennis coaches.
Any funny stories you want to highlight? Do people have different rules that we will stop multiple times to click photos? Is there any funny element around playing tennis there?
Oh gosh, I mean, over the years, we've had some fairly extravagant tennis players. I mean, the wonderful thing is that we have such a horde of extraordinarily nice guests that come through our doors throughout the year. Many of them come several times a year. Many of them have been coming for 40 years. I mean, right now. We've got what is called the PBI Masters, which is a tournament that we run on an annual basis, and it's free of charge for people to take part, and
Okay.
it's by invitation only because we only invite the people who've been faithful to the tennis program over the years, basically our favorite students throughout the year. And some of them,
Yeah.
I was speaking to them. Some of them have been coming to this tournament for 35 years. So it's rare to have a tournament that has a history of 35 years. B, nowadays it's very rare to have a tournament that costs €0, that doesn't cost
Yeah.
anything.
Mm.
And C, it's very rare to have a tournament in a setting as luxurious as what we have at Bayer Hotel Stanglwirt. But we do it because for us it's an important thing to be able to thank our faithful tennis players that come throughout the years and who've been coming for so many years. It's just a gesture of appreciation to them, and it's a very relaxed tournament. But at the same time, it's a serious tournament because there are prizes to be won, like rooms in the hotel, etc., etc. So,
Mm.
I mean that tournament for us is very, very special. It's something that
Yeah.
we attach a lot of importance to.
Wow. So as a maybe head of tennis there, I think you are in a very unique position with so many people coming that there is a great room for newer friendships for you.
Certainly true. Yeah, it's certainly true. I've been fortunate that through my career as a tennis coach, I've worked in clubs and I've worked in resorts, and there's different characteristics to working in one or the other. From a tennis coach's perspective, the advantage of working in a club is certainly that you can follow your student for many years. You see them week in, week out, and you can help them week in, week out, and really see their progress over the long
Uh,
term. Not only that, you're able to also form closer friendships, probably because you see these people week in, week out. The advantage of working in a resort is that you can make a big difference to somebody's game in a very short amount of time,
Yeah.
because you know that you're only going to have that student maybe for 1, 2, 3 hours with you. You really have to hone in on what you think is going to make the biggest difference in the shortest amount of time. And so you hone your teaching skills much finer working in a resort environment than you do in a club environment. And obviously, the other nice thing is that you come across a huge amount of people throughout the year. Unlike a club
mhm.
where you always see the same people throughout the week,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a resort environment, there's a constant turnover of new people, which keeps it fresh for the tennis coaches. But having said that, and as I mentioned before, we have a lot of people coming several times a year. And so you're able to also develop a closer relationship with many of these people. So, for example, the PBI masters that we have, these are people who've been coming for many years, and we're happy to see them again and again.
Well, I just want to get a little off topic, but when you're a coach, you were a coach, right? Before you joined the operations as well, or do you still coach there, like
I've
on court?
reduced, yeah, I've certainly reduced the amount of time that I am on court. I leave that to the younger guys, the
Yeah.
ones who can run faster and who can spend more time on the tennis court without getting tired. So yeah, my job responsibilities now are a little bit more off the court, but I still get on the court. That's my first love. That's where it all started for me. So yes, I still do get to spend time on the tennis court. I mean, my passion, my hobby is tennis. If I'm not teaching tennis, I'm thinking about tennis. And if I'm not thinking about tennis, I'm trying to organize a tennis match with someone. And if nobody will play with me, then I'm watching tennis on TV. So, it's something that I love. It's in my blood. Yeah, it's what I've done since the age of 8 years old, and I'm sure I'll be carrying on as long as my body allows me to.
I actually want to ask you is, when you're a coach at a resort, say when you're a coach at a club, you said that you meet the same set of people day in day out, right? So in that case, there is incremental improvement every day when you're teaching at a club, when you're talking to the students, or when you're coaching the students. But here there is a possibility that you have to encounter a different, I don't want to say problem exactly, but an error in style, or something new that you have to encounter every day with a different guest. Somebody has a poor backhand, somebody's service grip is wrong, somebody has no footwork at all. So isn't it more, it doesn't it require more patience as a coach?
Um, uh, no, no, yes. There's no definitive answer to that. I think first of all, what keeps things vibrant in a resort environment, especially in a place like this, is that you never know who's going to land on your court next. It might be a 5-year-old child. It might be a 40-year-old beginner. It might be an 80-year-old former Davis Cup player who can hardly move anymore. It might be a 20-year-old ATP aspiring player. So you have to be ready for anything that comes at you. And as I was saying earlier on, that's what hones your skills, first of all, because you have to be able to help whatever comes in front of you. As far as whatever problem they might come with, listen, I mean, the PBI teaching fundamentals are set that we very rarely change somebody's game. We make the most of what they have. The only time that we would make a radical change in anybody's grips or whatever is if they're not able to do what they want with the ball. So let's say somebody wants to learn how to hit a topspin forehand, but has got a very continental grip or is chopping down on the ball. Well, now we're going to have to make some radical changes here. So
Yeah.
that would be the first scenario. And the second scenario where we might make a radical change is if they're hurting themselves. So, for example, if they're if
Yeah.
they've got a tennis elbow and you can see them doing weird things with their rackets,
Yeah.
well, hey,
Yeah.
listen, that's something we're going to have to try and fix because otherwise they're not going to have a long tennis career. So those would be the two scenarios where we would make a radical change. Otherwise, we stick with what they have and we make the most of what they have. Our job is not to change somebody's grip on their serve in the space of 1 hour that we have with them. Will indicate that, hey, listen, if you want to have a better serve long term, it would probably be better if you change your grip from a frying pan grip to a more continental grip. And if you're willing, we will certainly experiment with it in the course of this lesson. But it's a long-term change and one that we won't be able to make in the space of the 1 or 2 hours that you have with us.
So Cool. Absolutely wonderful to hear all the experiences that you have shared. Any final thoughts before we close?
Well, the first thing I want to say before we close is thank you so much to both of you for the opportunity of not only presenting the hotel, but also talking a little bit about PBI. PBI is a wonderful, wonderful company which is very dear to me. It's allowed me to meet my wife. It's allowed me to work in many beautiful places around the world. It's provided a wonderful career, something that some unforgettable experiences. And as far as Biohotel Stanglwirt, well, I mean, this place is quite something. It has to be seen to be believed. There's a reason why the hotel runs an average occupancy of 98% throughout the year, why it's so difficult to
Oh,
get
wow.
into the hotel. It's no wonder that there's so many celebrities that love to spend their vacations here. So it's a very, very special place to me also. I hope I've been able to bring over a little bit of the enthusiasm that I have for this place, for the tennis, for PBI, to your viewers and to your listeners. And I would be absolutely honored if I would be able to welcome some of them. They're always able to contact me via email. You're more than welcome to publish my email if they have any questions regarding this place. Okay, but thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, I was about to ask how people can connect with you, but I'll include all the details in the description. It was wonderful talking to you. We both may visit sometime, but I'm sure whoever wants to visit, every detail will be available in the description of this video.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much, Phil, for
Yes, thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you so much. Yeah.